Kia ora and welcome everybody to episode 54 of Tech Bytes, crashing through the 50 mark towards 100. My name is Craig Young. If you haven't met me before, I am the Chief Executive of the Technology Users Association of New Zealand, or as we are known as 2ANZ, 40 years old. Next February and March, we'll be celebrating that. This episode is going to land in your inboxes on the 5th of December, the first Friday of the month, and we thought we'd do something a little bit different this year. So rather than just me sitting down with one person, I decided to get three at the same time. And so we'll make it a little bit more different, maybe a little less serious. Who knows? We might get into some topics that we want to debate and discuss, but we'll introduce each other. We'll start with my predecessor, actually, Mr. Paul Brislen, or Brizzo, or whatever you want to call him. You can call him
called worse.
You can call him Boyo, because apparently he's North Welsh. So yeah, Paul, you're the ex-CEO from Terms, but now you do another gig. So who are you? What's your background, and what are you doing now?
Yeah, I am, kia ora, bora da, if it's the morning when you're watching this. I am the Chief Executive of the Telecommunications Forum. So rather than keeping us all honest, as Craig does, I now work for the telco sector. We're the sector coordinating entity, the industry association, if you like. And we not only represent the sector, but we have a slightly odd role, a quasi-regulatory role. We help develop all the codes that the sector runs on. So whether it's emergency calling or vulnerable customers or marketing, number portability, a whole raft of things like this that help the sector work together when they're allowed to. So that's the role today. In a previous life, I ran 2ANZ, and before that I was a journalist covering the sector. So I've been stuck in telecommunications and technology now for about 30 years, which doesn't seem at all possible. But here I am.
Yeah, and I do remember working with you when you were at 2ANZ and I was at that other company, ringing you up and telling you to stop making things up. Like the journalist that you are.
Difficult.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, thanks, Paul. Ange, we'll go to you next. So the last time I talked to you as an interviewed you for Tech Bytes, because we have done one, you were in a Black Ferns jersey because you're in a previous role working for NZ Rugby. And now, why are you working in insurance? So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so kia ora everyone. So I'm Ange Nash, CIO at AA Insurance. And as Craig says, I previous life was the CITO at NZ Rugby for about 5 years. You could not get two more different jobs or industries than going from professional sports to insurance. And before that, like Craig and Paul, I was in telecommunications and at Rands and Spark and various other places. So yeah, a bit of a varied background. I've also been in technology since I left university, so well over 30 years now. So I've kind of landed here and working on a big transformation project, and talk to you guys today.
I like to say I've never worked for Telecom, but that's actually a lie. Because when I jumped ship from Telstra Clear to Chorus, we were still part of Telecom. So my contract was with Telecom New Zealand. So unfortunately, so many of us have gone through that ship. The other side. I have no idea whether our next guest has been there, but Ollie, Oliver, are we allowed to call you Ollie, aren't we?
Ollie, please call me Ollie.
Yeah,
yes.
Ollie. I've known Ollie for a couple of years now in his previous role, HP, but he's a good dude. Not that anyone else isn't, but Ollie. And we've had you involved in a few things, and we thought we'd get you on this year to talk about 2025. So you were at HP, but now you're at Schneider, right?
That's right. Yes. So I sort of gone from both feet in IT to 1 foot in IT, 1 foot in OT. We your energy technology partner is how our sort of tagline. So Schneider Electric, sort of the largest company in the world that people don't know. We've got 150,000 employees. We've got a market cap of 140 billion euros. We're this enormous company, but we sit behind a lot of things. We're inside factories automating things. We sit behind walls. We do a lot with energy. So we do energy management, industrial automation. We digitize energy and use software to make you make better use of it, whether that be in your business, within your industrial complex, in your factory, your data center, or within your home. So yeah, very amazing business, and still being able to be in IT, but with our data center business and all those good things, but able to learn a lot in that energy space. It's been a great year, just ticked over 1 year.
Excellent. And look, everybody, I've invited these three not just because I like them, but they do have great experience. They are big thinkers. They're thinking about things. They got things on their plate, and they come from a variety of different places. So we've got a range of topics I want to cover today. May not get through them all, but we'll see, and we may drift off somewhere. We'll just see how we go. Let's start with. And Ollie, I'm going to come to you first because you were on a panel for me at the beginning of the year talking about what was coming in 2025. So let's go back and say, okay, what was your biggest tech story for 2025? And that prediction you made, and I can't remember what it was, so
I can make that up. Yeah.
You're going to make that up completely. Did it come true?
Yeah, I think so. So, my prediction when I sat on that panel, again, thank you for these opportunities, Craig, really enjoy them. But I said that AI was going to obviously be the biggest story. There was no question about that. Every panelist said the same thing. It would have been very interesting if someone had said something else. But, that everyone's been very excited about large language models and what that can do for us. But the next thing was going to be, we were going to start to see, more vertical integration into processes to make organizations more competitive. And what I have seen is that is absolutely happening, is people are going, okay, to get the real deep value, you actually have to pull apart a process and figure out how you shift that. And so you've got the horizontal things that are coming through, but they're not showing that depth of value that we maybe hoped they would. They show a lot of value spread thinly across your organization. What I think where people are at now is, okay, how do we get into the chunkier ones that are going to make us more cost effective or more faster for our customers, or those types of attributes. So yes, I think it's happened.
Oh, we'll give you the Chocolate Fish Award then. We are obviously going to be talking AI. We cannot have a session like this and not cover AI. But let's go somewhere completely different, Mr. Brislen. What was your tech story for 2025? And please don't say the 3G shutdown.
No. I won't do that to you. I was going to talk about AI again a little bit because with my journalist hat on, I want to talk about the AI bubble, because all year long I've been coming to various sessions and talking to various people who are like, AI is the future. It's the biggest thing that's ever happened. And all I could hear was former editors in previous lives saying, blockchain is the biggest thing that's ever happened to us. It'll be great. AR, VR is the biggest thing that's ever happened. It'll be great. 3D printing will revolutionize every business in the world. It'll change everything. Aston Martin won't make cars. They'll just make plans for cars, and you'll print one off on your 3D printer. Before that, if we go back to the grandfather of them all, of course, was the Web 2.0 and the dot-com bubble. And I'm delighted to say I'm seeing the end of the bubble. I think by the time this comes out, possibly early next year, we'll start to have seen a lot of the gloss come off. And that's a good thing. It's not that AI or any of these other technologies doesn't deliver or doesn't work at all. It's that the hype machine that just generates so much absolute rubbish is finally starting to come apart at the seams. And I'm delighted to see that, because now we can actually start to have a look at what the technology is and what it will actually do. And to Ollie's point, you'll start to see real products starting to emerge that actually do deliver on the promise without all of the madness about everybody's going to lose their jobs and we're going to take over all of the art, and you won't ever be able to look at a video the same way again. All of that's going to hopefully finally fade away, and the news media will find something else to talk about. So that was my
heading to
prediction
the-
back in January, and
Yeah.
starting to come true. Yeah.
We're heading to the
Nice.
trough of despair, or whatever it's called in the height curve. I can't remember what it's called. And then you
Yeah.
start finding real use cases. Well, what about you, Ange? What's your top story for 2025?
Do you know what? The thing I've really been watching and interested in, and this is part just sort of personal interest, is the space industry at the moment. And for the first time ever, we've had a private spacecraft land on the moon. We've had all that. The cost is coming down. If you follow Rocket Labs closely, which I do, I think for me, AI is obviously huge, and but I agree the slippery fish of blockchain is the spectre looms large, right? But I think I've just been so super interested in that area as an industry. And years ago, if someone said to me, what should I study at uni, I would have said cyber or data. Now I'm telling people to get into space. All right, you can get a degree in space sciences and stuff like that. And so for me, I think it's not just one story, but that whole industry is so interesting and dragging us forward at a pace we haven't seen in decades.
Yeah. Well, Elon Musk is now talking about building data centers in space, which is backhaul is going to be an interesting discussion around that one.
You better keep them cool.
Yeah, that's right. You don't worry. Well, that's why they want to build data centers in New Zealand, because it is cooler down here. We'll come back to that a little bit later, I think. But let's try and get this AI thing out of the way, although it's going to keep popping up, right? So agentic AI, the shift towards that, what was your coming back to you, Ollie, because you made that prediction, and yes, okay, we'll let you have it. The biggest game changer in AI, was it the performance of the models, the rise of agentic? How are you seeing it in Schneider, not just inside your business, but what you're providing?
Yeah, I think, look, I mean, obviously the models keep getting better, but I think people's expectations got pretty high, to Paul's point. Everyone's like, oh, that's it, in 6 months' time, it's going to be, basically I can sit back and relax and my life will be taken care of. So, the models, of course, have got better, but I don't think any faster than we thought they were going to get better, maybe even a little bit slower. Some of the integration, is not where you'd think it would be. And why can't we get the integration with the software that certain people already have? So I don't think that is. I think, agentic, I would go that way. We're certainly building some of our tools, rebuilding some of our capability with that in mind. So, we've got a sustainability software package where we're like, we need this, such a complex thing to run as an organization. We need something that you can just chat to get the outcomes and to deliver you what you need. You don't need teams. You shouldn't have to have teams of people pouring through data. So I would go the latter on the agentic would be for me.
What about you, Ange? You're running a business that isn't a tech business. It's an insurance business, but you are obviously using tech. I mean, what's been the biggest game changer in AI for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us it really is. We've definitely got some things in train, and we're working on. We've launched our COE and all that sort of good stuff. So we've got the guardrails in place and prepping for regulation, which is inevitably going to come down the pipeline and smack me in the face at some point. But I think for us it's the to Ollie's point earlier, the sort of it's around the processes and really looking at those things. When we look at our, particularly in insurance, you have your high volume, low complexity transactions with your customer. That's where the real winners, right, for us at the moment. And that seems to be the things that we're going after. I think there's a lot of hype around call centers. I think there's a lot of hype around what customers are wanting and expecting. And so it's really just trying to find what that balance is between giving someone something that's easy, like I've chipped my windscreen, I don't want to talk to a human to get that fixed, versus generally when people are calling an insurance company, they've had a very, very bad day. And so you've got to try and figure out the best way to deal with that. I think as a general rule, anything that's, and I'm sure no one's going to call me a liar for saying all our systems aren't necessarily the most modern ones on the planet, right? So anything that we can do to kind of band-aid over or drag some of those things forward by using agentic AI to deliver information from 6 screens into one, single pane of glass type stuff, that I think that's our win for us going forward, because I don't have a huge amount of ability to make massive underlying infrastructure changes. So, using it to make processes better is actually where we're going after at the moment. Yeah.
I think just coming back to one of your comments, not tech related, but I think, if I had an accident in my car and I was ringing my insurance company to say I think it's a write-off, I'd probably be quite happy, actually.
Depends on the car, right?
I'm just driving it to just death. It's a French car, so French cars have all sorts of different strange things about them. What about? Does anyone want to step into what's happening in New Zealand? So it's easy to talk about AI and think about the global thing, but New Zealand, the adoption is a little bit up and down. Where are we going to see the real big tangible productivity gains in our business, and what sectors? Anyone want to start with that one?
Go on, I'll jump in because I've used 2 AIs lately, and I'm glad Ange is on the call because hers was one of them. And without wanting to blow smoke at all, it was exactly what you said. It was about trying to find the information on the website about insurance claim and whether or not my windscreen was covered by my policy. And that's literally what I typed in, and the agent was fantastic. That's not the best agent I've used lately, though. I'm sorry, Ange, you've been pipped by my local Burger King, because when I get up to the Burger King and the robot lady asks me what I would like, and I have the order, any dad in the audience will know what this is like. I want a Big Mac. I want a Whopper, but no onion. She wants a Whopper with onion and extra cheese. This one doesn't want pickle. That one doesn't want mayonnaise. Can we get this? Can we do it? And the robot lady is incredibly calm and patient and gets the order right. More importantly, gets the order right. So that has dramatically skewed where we go to get takeaways on a Friday night, because it's just much easier. And isn't that what we want, right? We don't want these things taking over. We want the process to be easier. And all too often I find that they're an added layer of complexity, whereas in those 2 examples, they both made life a lot easier. And I think certainly the vision is to make life easier for the customer to get through. I could name a couple of other businesses that have absolutely appalling AI models that you just scream at. And the trick there is if you swear at them, they'll put you through to a human. So there's learnings to be had in that one, I think.
Oh, we've given a tip out today. There you go.
Tips for young players.
Yeah. Ange, you've already been picked up, but your AI apparently is good.
Well, some of them are, yeah. We're working on it.
Yeah. Where do you see productivity gains being made in New Zealand?
Do you know what? This is going to sound really basic response, but just the personal productivity I'm seeing of people picking up things like ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude, any of those, whatever your flavor is. The reduction in people using Google as their engine of choice to go and find information, and actually just going straight to some sort of agent to help you. And it's not a specific industry, it's just a general observation across all sorts of different age groups and work types and stuff like that. It's the speed at which that has become commonplace this year has been quite interesting to watch. And I think, when I have teenage children, and when I see them interact with these things, like they treat these like, just off topic a little bit here, but when my son was 3, I remember walking up to the TV and doing this, trying to zoom in on a close a window so he could scroll across and do something else. Now that came straight from an iPad, right? That's digital natives. We know that they do that. Now, as a teenager, he treats Copilot and ChatGPT and things like that just like they've always been there. And so I think for me, that productivity around self-guided learning for students and things like that, it's been really, really interesting to watch, not from the cheating aspect, but from if they get something wrong, they can go and seek out answers. So I've found that a really interesting thing to sort of observe just in general. And of course, I'm sure we all use it for various things, but I've found that a really interesting thing.
Yeah, simple things like that.
Yeah.
Ollie, got any thoughts?
Yeah, look, I mean, there's so many different things I could pull out. I think one thing that we've seen in our businesses, we've got 20,000 coders, and the productivity gains, we're seeing 25% productivity gains by leveraging AI. And now that doesn't mean we've got rid of 25%. It means we can speed up our innovation process, right? And
Yeah.
I think everyone is looking at it from that perspective, or most people. So, you know, that is super tangible. And yeah, it takes some change management, because some people are like, oh no, I like the way I used to do it. You're like, well, sorry, but it makes you 25% more productive. So you kind of have to get on this journey. So those are the things where I do think, you know, we need to maintain that competitiveness globally, right? Because, you know, in a lot of our businesses, you're competing on a global stage, or you might be competing here and someone else might come in. So and if we're not, taking those opportunities at pace, then you do have some risk there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the other thing around this AI bubble, whatever you want to call it, Paul, or this huge growth in AI. I was at the data center convention last week, and there's lots of conversations around, you know, how many data centers you need, how much sort of connectivity you need. I can't believe that undersea cables has come back up on the list of issues to be discussing.
Yeah, it's enormous, right? So that data pull, if you go back through the archives, Craig, you'll find the occasional column that I wrote 100 years ago saying an opportunity for New Zealand is to become the home of data for the region. If we were to set up, we've got everything that the big data centers are looking for. We've got cheap electricity. It's green electricity. We've got cold climate, so that reduces your need for air conditioning. We've got a stable government, whichever side it's on. We're not at risk terribly much. And land is cheap, particularly in the South Island. So let's crack on and build some more cables. And everybody called me a communist, and nobody came out in support. And it was all rather a damp squib. Fast forward now to, what are we, 15 years later, and we've now got the Southern Cross cables. We've got the Trans-Tasman cable. We've got Trans-Pacific cable. We've got another one coming into the south of New Zealand soon. And it's starting to become a reality, albeit a little bit late. We're an add-on rather than the core. But I think there's huge opportunity for New Zealand to still own more in this space. But it does come down to submarine cables. And the new big topic for all of us, of course, is over the next few years, Ollie's in the right place. It's electricity. How do we make sure that electricity supply is resilient and can grow with the demand? Because demand is going to outstrip supply if we're not careful.
Yeah. Well, let's ask Ollie about that. You know, how do we make sure we can use, electricity or that resource as a economic lever? You know, what can we do with it to make it work?
Yeah, look, so this is a big topic, and every time you mention data centers or AI, there's this automatic response of, oh, well, what about the electricity? So I think few things are important for me anyway, which are, one, it currently uses a very, very small percentage of our electricity, like less than 1%. It's forecasted to get to less than 2% by 2030, right? So we're not talking about a massive strain on the grid. In some countries, there's different things. They also talk about the water issue. That's not an issue here because we have closed loop water systems in New Zealand, so the water is not an issue either. But it's very easy for people and journalists sometimes, no offense to people that have done some of it, to jump onto these global themes and go, oh, this is a problem here. But I don't see it that way. Also, data sovereignty, which is critical, right? Like, we are going to be using data centers because we use Netflix, we use ChatGPT, we use all these things, we use Microsoft 365. Do you want your data in New Zealand or do you want it somewhere else? Because in New Zealand, it's going to be more sustainable because we've got more sustainable electricity, and it's going to be in the country, and it's going to create jobs here, not heaps of jobs, but some. So why would we not want data centers here? But then if we get more into the energy side, we've got amazing natural resources. We've got great sunlight. Again, some people don't think we do. We do actually have really good sunlight. We've got wind. We've got so much hydro. We've got thermal. So many good things. We just need to unlock all of these. And there are some settings that we need to have a look at to make sure we're better leveraging those things. Because and Paul's made all those very good points. There is a huge opportunity for us on a global scale.
Yeah. But Ange, as a user of data centers, etc., what's your perspective on this issue?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with Ollie. Actually, I think the opportunities in front of us to go and sort of expand our footprint in this area, and I think data sovereignty is a really, really interesting topic at the moment. And I think, like I said before, you know, we don't have a huge amount of regulation across all these areas, and we obviously do around some data and privacy and stuff like that. But I think those things are going to become even more important to us as a country, but us as users about having control over our data. I mean, you know, when we think of data sovereignty, it's the ability to control the data that's about you or your people or whatever. And I think you know, it's just far easier to control that thing when it's in your own backyard. So I think for me, at a sort of just at a fundamental level, I think that's where it should go, and I think that's where it will go. And so anything that's taking us on that path is a good thing, I think, at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, data sovereignty is a really interesting one. We're
Yeah.
part of an international group, an INTAG, and we had a conversation our most recent call around data sovereignty, because even in Europe, you know, individual countries are starting to think about data sovereignty around their stuff, and yet they're supposed to be an economic union. And of course, then you say to them, well, what you know, we have an added layer, which is our cultural layer, you know, Te Ao Māori, you know, that brings another element. But I did like the way you talked about it, Ange, which was it's your, you know, if you take it down to the individual level, it's your ability to know where your data is and that transparency. So let's just talk about data sovereignty for a minute. Paul, you've been in journo, you've been around almost as long as I have, perhaps not. Nobody's
You're
been
much
around
older
as long
than
as I have. But
Yeah.
What does data sovereignty mean to you?
Well, it's a really important issue, and I'm glad to see it finally starting to come to light, because for far too long we've been the product, not the customer. And now we're moving from potentially being the customer to being the owner of our own data. And you see this most recently with the customer data rights work going on with banking. So I don't know if anybody's tried to change bank accounts lately or move to a different provider.
None of
It
us
is
are bankers, so
I'll wave
like.
in them. It is a nightmare, to put it mildly. And you do, in fact, if you've got a mortgage, you need to get a lawyer involved. So that ability to say, I'm in charge of my own data and I will go from here to there and use a different provider is incredibly restricted. I would like to just blow my own horn for a moment or two, if I may. Number portability allows you to... number portability means you can move from one provider to the other in New Zealand remarkably easily. So easily, in fact, we've had to put in a little bit more friction and get you to confirm you want to do it, to stop the rat bags from moving you fraudulently from one provider to another. It's that easy to do. But banking, life insurance is the other one. You know, I'm going through this at the moment. You'd like to review your life insurance? Well, please fill in on this form and tell us every ailment you've ever had in your life. And I said, well, okay, hang on. You're actually my life insurance provider. So you've got all this information. And why don't you just ask me to give you access to my health records, which I'm happy to do. Oh, no. We want you to fill in this form, which runs to 300 or 400 pages of madness. When you get old, Craig, as you know, you've got a lot of ailments to report. And this thing, it's been going on for 6 months now, and we're still just in the phase. They haven't even given me a price yet for what we could move to. It is nightmarish. So being able to own your own data and say, I give you access to it in this controlled way, and then I'll move over here in this controlled way. That's so empowering. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that in the next few years. Finally, I'm delighted to see it.
I feel like we've got to give Ange the right of reply to that one around insurance.
Ange doesn't do
I'm
life
not
insurance.
touching that one at all.
Well, maybe just give us a more general perspective on data sovereignty then, and yeah.
Yeah, I think I think the cultural aspect of it is actually really important, particularly in New Zealand. And you know, so there's just so much of your information out there unless you really, really choose to restrict it. And I actually think that the ability to self-manage what you share, so as opposed to giving it, you have control over it, and then you share aspects of it as required. And I feel like that's where it's going to go. Now, we're just not set up to do it in that way. And when you think about insurance, if we start thinking of we might monitor how fast you drive your car, how many kilometers you might use in a year, and price accordingly. So that becomes a whole nother conversation around monitoring your data and you having control of what you want me to see and when you don't want me to see it, because that might affect what you get charged. And, there's just the complexities on complexity of that, I think, is something we have to be really, really careful about. Though, in saying that, I think when you manage your data and you share aspects of it as required, I think that's a good model for us to aim at, as opposed to 17 different providers that might be in your life all have, they almost own your data on your behalf. I think it's nicer to think of it the other way around. But yeah, it's a moving feast, that's for sure.
The health record is one that always interests me, because we like to keep control of our health record, but if I turn up to North Shore Hospital and I'm unconscious and can't tell anyone what my phone number is or anything, I want the people that are dealing with me right then to know exactly what's my background, am I allergic to anything, etc. So, I do want them to have access. So, yeah.
And that is a problem at the moment, because we in health in particular, we don't have that ubiquity across the country. So your records might be stored in an electronic server or service here in Auckland, but if you're in the South Island, for example, they can't access your records because it's a different geography. They were a different DHB, so they still haven't managed to bring it all together. That's incredibly dangerous and has led to some fairly poor outcomes for people. Ownership of data and being able to, as you say, decide what you'll share and in what environment, what way, that is really important stuff.
Yeah. Very true. Well, people, we're in the middle of episode 54 of Tech Bytes. Really enjoying being here, having this conversation with Paul Brislen, Ange Nash, and Ollie Hill. We've covered a few things at the moment, and I am going to have to let Paul have his little say around the 3G network being switched off. But then I don't want you to spend too much time on it, Brislen, because I am going to ask the other two, have they heard about it? And
that's
done anything about it, but also I do want to hear from the three of you about 5G was just this promised land. Has it really given us what we thought we were going to get?
So I start with the 3G, and then we can knock that one off fairly rapidly. So 3G was the network. These Gs, these are generations, right? So this is the third generation cellular network, introduced back when the iPhone first launched. So that's how long ago this is. Those of us who remember the launch will remember the launch of 3G as well. And it was the last of the mobile networks that were a voice network with a little bit of data bolted on the side. From the fourth generation on, with all that's come since, it's a data-centric network, and voice is just a component of that. So that was the real changing pivot point, if you like. It was the start of the data generation and the ability to suddenly use these devices for all those apps and all the things you've got. You just couldn't do that before. It's very old now. It's very old and it's antiquated. It's not very fast. And as I say, it's got this voice component that uses a lot of space. So we're switching it off. Not just here in New Zealand, but all around the world. The Australians have done it already. If you go to Vietnam, you won't find a 3G network. All around the world, the 3G and what's left of the 2G networks are being turned off. And I can just say it is not the end of the world. This is not the first time we've turned off a network. You'll remember, some older readers will remember the 025 network from Telecom. That went by the by. 2 Degrees switched off 2G about 8 years ago. The world kept revolving. The same thing will happen here. The trick is, find out what you've got that's reliant on 3G and make sure you've got a plan to do something else if you need to once the switch off's taken place. So you've got until the end of the year.
Why 25K?
Yeah, exactly. It's ticking. It's not going to go away. You can't put it off. It will just eventually stop. And the cutoff date depends which network you are. by the end of this year or early next year, it'll be gone. And most of you won't notice. Some people whose phones are reliant on it will notice, and they need to do something about it. That's it for 3G.
Yep. So the two users on the call, or the two people who don't represent the telecommunications industry, have either of you noticed that that's happening? And then also about the 5G stuff, do you reckon it's delivered what it promised?
Shall I go first, Ollie?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, okay. So I was working in telco when we launched 3G, the 3G network in this country. So I was aware that it was getting turned off because I was right in the middle of it when it went live. So yeah, I mean, I think and we won't talk about that anymore. And then I think with the 5G, do you know what? I think the hype has not delivered what we thought it would in the time frame that it was hyped. So I think we're slowly getting there. It's more and more prevalent. You see it switching over, though we all know that just because your handset says you're on 5G doesn't mean you're necessarily getting 5G. Though it's very handy if you're on a boat out in the Hauraki Gulf and looking for some cell phone coverage out there. I think the potential's still really there, though I think it's almost like a solution looking for a problem. I think a lot of the things that we thought we were going to be using it for just aren't out there yet. And, you know, the smart cities and all those sort of things that were like, yay, 5G is going to come save the day. Those things just aren't everywhere yet. And I think they will come and become a bit more as we go through the next few years. But I just, I think the hype was we'll turn this on and everyone's going to magically switch all their systems to deliver across this super high speed mobile network, and it just hasn't happened in the way that everyone sort of assumed. So I think the technology's there now largely, but the things that use it, I would say, aren't quite where we thought they would be.
Look, I think first of all, I'm quite enjoying being dialed in over a 5G network as we speak. So I am enjoying that because my power is out to my house at the moment because I'm getting. No, it was kind of planned, and I had confidence because I knew I had 5G to back up on that. So it is useful, and hopefully you can see and hear me okay. So yeah, but I'm absolutely not lived up to the hype at all. I think I'm pretty excited by some of the opportunities created by satellite data, and we're starting to see there's some New Zealand startups actually looking to take some of that and adapt it and make it more digestible into a local context so that you can get 100% coverage, which does mean that you can get more of this monitoring that we need. In our industry, we've got products all over the country, transmitting power up and down the country for Transpower, and the ability to be able to monitor that wherever, is pretty exciting. So I'm probably a little bit more excited about that than 5G.
Yeah.
In defense of the 5G for a moment, if I can, with
telco
hat on, barely briefly. Look, this is my problem with all hype cycles, right? You get so much noise that the expectation is ramped up beyond all possible outcome. And then when it arrives, most people go, is that it? And literally the promise of 5G was a faster connection with lower latency, and it's delivered that. If it's delivered cities of the future, then they're happening somewhere else. It's not happening in but having said that, there is so much potential, and networks, of course, are the groundwork. That's the basis on which you can build all these things. So to Ollie's point, he can actually work from home without any power because he knows he's got a network that would deliver, and you wouldn't have done that pre-5G. So I find that each generation delivers what the previous one promised. So 3G was going to be all about video calling, and it didn't happen until 4G. And 4G was going to be all about fast blazing speeds on internet, so you could do video calling and watch video, and that didn't happen until 5G arrived. And it goes like that. We're starting to see the benefits now, to the point where I don't even look for free Wi-Fi anymore because the 5G is just there on my phone. I just don't even bother. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, well, you talked about a lot of noise, all the noise around it, and then Ollie's talked about satellites, and that sort of got me to thinking about the man of the year, and it's not President Trump, but this man that's worth, he's got a paycheck, he's going to get a pay rise to $1 trillion, Mr.
No, he isn't.
Must.
No, he isn't.
Okay,
Not
Paul,
gonna
you
happen.
go first. Juno, is
Listen.
he worth $1 trillion?
No, and he's not going to get $1 trillion. And all that claim is going to do is drive away investment, I think, in some fairly important technology. Love them or hate them, Tesla has driven the EV revolution. It's triggered all the other car makers to go down the right track, I believe, in terms of what's right for the environment. In a way that we just hadn't done before. We've had electric vehicles since before the internal combustion engine. It took Elon to come along and before him, the original founders of Tesla to come along and say, electric vehicles can be fun. They can be a good driving experience. And nobody had ever done that before. So my hat's off to them. Starlink, for all its sins, having a low Earth orbit satellite fleet, putting aside the questions around astronomy and the visibility of the night sky, that is going to fundamentally change resilience for countries like ours, particularly rural and remote customers. You will no longer be able to say that, oh, I couldn't make the meeting because there was no connectivity, because anywhere you can see the sky, you will find a connection. Love it or hate it, but that is the answer. And I think SpaceX, once they get past all of the madness of trying to cut corners, has really rejuvenated the whole space exploration model, and that's fantastic. And Ange, I'm with you. I think if I was getting into something these days, it would be rockets. Deeply jealous that Peter Griffin got to write a book about Rocket Lab. That's going in my Christmas stocking this year, I hope. But it's fantastic. But is he worth $1 trillion? No. And all he's doing is making it all about him at a time when it should really be all about the products and the technology that he's helping to deliver. So I think if we could move Elon out of the story, we'd have a much better story to tell.
Interesting, because you're right. I mean, the people don't actually realize that he didn't found Tesla. No, it was other people that came up with the idea.
Yep. And he actually paid them more to take on the title co-founder. So he bought the company off them and then said, here, I'll give you a bit extra if you tell everybody I'm the founder of Tesla. And they said, I'll take your money, Elon, because clearly you're as mad as a cut snake. So here we are.
Yeah. Hey, Ollie, so, Elon's just one example of a big tech billionaire. You work for a multinational. You are in New Zealand, obviously. I mean, do you think, or how are these tech billionaires impacting the sector and the delivery and what's happening in this space?
Yeah, well, I mean, we need visionaries, and unfortunately, you need to be a little bit crazy to be a tech entrepreneur. Because you're taking such big risks, and Tesla, yes, now they make money, but I mean, there's a long time there where they didn't, and it was touch and go, right? They took some very big risks on building some very big infrastructure to get their cost level down to where they needed to do, and it could have very easily gone the wrong way. So you're going to get crazy characters. That's just the nature of it. But we need these disruptors. Ideally, they are more disruptive and less crazy. That's the goal. And ideally less political, I think that's always a challenge when people, it gets too deep into politics and money and starts to impact politics. There's always something that people shy away from, including myself. So, but we need a bit of crazy. And to Paul's point, full disclosure, I drive a Tesla, and it's an amazing driving experience. It's great for the environment, especially in New Zealand. Once we unlock vehicle to grid, where your car can power your house, and you can take advantage of that enormous battery that can power your house for days and days, the economic benefits and sustainability benefits for the country are enormous. So these things are critical. But pay packets make people that are that disparate from everybody else, and the power that creates makes a lot of people feel uncomfortable. But I haven't figured out what the solution is. I mean, he could give half of it to me. That would, reduce it. But
yeah. Hey, Ange, I'm going to throw you a question which you don't have to answer.
Okay.
But they're all tech bros. So we know that we have a shortage of women in tech. Does that sort of behaviour help or hinder us encouraging more women to take leadership roles?
Oh, that's loaded. There's
It is, eh?
there's plenty of crazy women leaders out there, if I'm being honest. I don't think it discourages anyone though. It's not quite tech, but if you look at Theranos and what happened, what happened there, the outcome's not great, but I think there was a lot of pressure and expectation and people starting conversations there with this young woman started this company, and you don't get this young man who started a company. So I definitely think there's something still in there. I'm not sure it would discourage anyone necessarily, because I think you have to, you've got to be born to be an Elon Musk, right? I think you've got to be born to be that level of unhinged. I don't think any human on the planet deserves $1 trillion pay packet, just for the record. I think that's obscene in so many ways. But, he did it. He's gone out and chased things and done things. But, yeah, I still think there is a disparity there. I think there's plenty of very visible, very strong, very well, educated and competent and pragmatic female leaders out there in technology. I think they're out there. From an entrepreneur perspective, there's definitely a little bit less, I would say, but there's multiple reasons why that might be as well.
Yeah, thanks for answering that. And I know I came up with it on my own. I do want to finish up with one question, which I think is quite relevant at the moment, and is going to, I think, knowing you three, that you might have 3 different perspectives on this one as well. And this is all around being safe online, and in particular what we do with our kids. So I've been involved with the development of the technology curriculum over the last 12 months. It'd be fair to say what came out wasn't what we'd worked on, but it's not just that. There are a number of moves around the globe. Australia, their restriction or ban, I'm not sure what word to use, on social media is coming in. Denmark, as one of the most, forward-thinking countries, is bringing in some changes as well. And then, of course, some states in the US are looking to put restrictions on it. And, even my kids who are in their early 30s are like, how do kids these days cope with the stuff that are going on? And Ollie, I know you're a dad. So what's your thinking around these sort of approaches, etc.?
Yeah, well, look, this is a topic I'm particularly passionate and active about, actually. So I read a book called The Anxious Generation, which is a very well-researched book that links the use of smartphones and social media to mental harm in children. And it really, really resonated with sort of where I was already at. So I've actually started a group. I started to do research about, are there organisations in New Zealand that are working towards this? And there were. So joined one of those groups, and then have started a group within our community, actually, which we call Kids Be Kids. We're all getting the community to sign a pledge to not give our kids smartphones until they're 14, and no social media until 16. Because my view is I would say 9.5 out of 10 parents that I speak to are worried about it and want to do something about it, but they don't know what to do. And so, and everyone's different about how they want to approach it, but a lot of them were like, we just don't want them to have it. And so we're like, well, if we could get our whole community, because it's kind of a geographical thing, the peer pressure, to commit to this, then the peer pressure could almost be reversed. And the kids would be like, well, the majority don't. So therefore, so it's something I think, and I know there is a balance of, I want them to still have technology. I mean, I'm a tech person, so I want them to have technology. So giving people the guidance on how to actually navigate that, I think, is really important, because it's not don't have any technology, but it is definitely not now you're 11, you're going to school, here's a phone with full data connectivity and go for it, so, and now everyone's going to have a different line. It is where that is between those two things. But for me, I'm probably more on the conservative delay side.
my kids, when they were 11, they got a phone because they were catching buses or something to go to school. But they were the old flip or the, the texting.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we didn't have that issue. Ange, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'm with Ollie on this one, right? I was that mum that locked the router down so it shut off at 9 o'clock at night and didn't come back on again until, 9 o'clock the next morning. Neither of my kids got a smartphone until they were into their teens, and it came with a very, very long training lecture about what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, and I monitored it. And so they only had access to certain things. Now I know how to set that stuff up. So that we were lucky that we lived in a household where I knew how to do those things. But there's plenty of parents that want to do those things but don't know how. So I think the education of parents, and every child is different. So some kids you trust a little bit more, and that's just good parenting, right? And your kids, some kids can cope better than others with certain things. So I think being able to have that education, and like you say, there's a geography around it of groups of parents all sort of coming together so that the groups of the children see what becomes normal, so it's not just this free for all access for a 6-year-old with an iPad that's got full connectivity. That's just not going to work for the majority of children. So I think for me, you have your personal preference, but then if you're educated and have the ability to go and seek that information to apply your personal preference to your own family situation, I think that's actually the key for us going forward, because a lot of people don't lock those things down because they just don't know how, and then they want to do it, but and then it's goes on your to-do list of things, and you've got no one to go talk to except for if you've got a friend who's in IT, you fix their laptop like you fix their router, right? And we can do better than that.
Yeah. You want to have the last word, Paul?
Oh, always, Craig, always.
Yeah, of course.
Look, I tend to agree. There's nothing I could argue with on either of those. I do worry when people say we must ban this whole thing for everybody under the age of 16 or pick a number. I think that leads to really poor outcomes, both for the kids who have no idea what they're missing out on, but really get curious and want to find out. But also, we're seeing a lot of evidence from Europe in particular that what you're doing is creating a really juicy target for fraudsters and online abusers of under 16s, because they're being identified as such. So you're not allowed access to this. Come on over here and play, children. The van full of puppies on the internet. That is a real challenge. And to Ange's point, I think we've got the tools to manage these things at a family level. What we need to do is support parents into making the call that's right for them. And that to me is a much more useful and proactive approach. And it's certainly what we did. We were like you, Craig. As soon as the kids were doing after school activities, then they needed to be in touch. And that's the approach we took. Make sure they've got access, but also lock it down so that they can't go off and do things without coming to talk to us. And that's the key, right? You've actually got to have some uncomfortable conversations, I'm afraid. Hey, that's parenting these days. You can't just rely on your electricity provider to cut off the power or your telco to cut off the internet. That's just not going to work. So,
and they do still sell dumb phones, just so you
They
know.
do.
Like,
absolutely
you can still buy those.
Yeah,
They're called
$50
feature phones, Ollie. Feature phones.
Oh, feature phone. Okay.
Yeah, dumb phone sounds like they're dumb. They're feature phones.
Oh, feature phone. Okay.
I
Yes.
call
Not a
them dumb
defect, it's
phones.
a
You're all
feature.
right,
I'll
Ollie.
just call it 3210. 3310.
Yeah. Snake. You can play Snake. Hey, it's been an amazing conversation. Really enjoyed doing this with three of you. I'll give you one chance to say one thing about a key technology issue or lesson you're going to carry forward into the new year before I wrap up. And so, Ange, because your name is alphabetically first, you can go first.
Get good at shifting your priorities.
Okay, Ollie.
Oh, look, for me, for us, it's all about electrification and the ability for New Zealand to buy a lot less oil and coal from other places is about us electrifying our processes, that transportation and industry, etc. So for me, electrification.
And Well, I've done it again.
You have.
Last word for Paul Brislen.
Look, and I would say exactly what Ollie has said. Electrification of New Zealand is coming. It's inevitable. We absolutely need to embrace it, and it's going to be so good. I want to see a digital strategy for the country that actually is enduring. It's been 25 years, Craig, since we sat at the Knowledge Wave conference and learned all about the future. And I've said it about 50 times since. Somebody said to me, we're standing on the cusp of a new era. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are still standing. It's time to actually jump in. It's been 25 years of thinking about it. Even Kiwis can move at a faster rate. Let's jump in and see what we can do with it, because we'll be great at it. We really will.
We will. Well, I want to thank everyone for listening in today, or whether you've watched it on YouTube or you've listened to it on your podcast channel. And to those of you that have listened to every episode up to episode 54, or even if you've just listened to this year, you can go back. There is at least one with Ange in a previous life when she was at Rugby NZ, you know. So you can go back and listen to that. It's all on our website. Look, 2025 is coming to an end. We're heading into 2026. Let's hope it's a better year, and some of the things that we want to come through. It's a big year for Two Hands. It's our 40th anniversary. We'll be celebrating it in February and March. 40 years is pretty good in the tech industry, and we're still here. So it's really pleased to be there. We've got a lot of things to do in that new year. So I'll finish off by saying thank you to Paul Brislen from the TCF. Thanks, Ange from AA Insurance, and to Ollie Hill from Schneider Electric. Really appreciate all three of you for being here on this conversation, and to all of those that have listened. So thanks very much, and ka kite.